give some few. Yes, we will record the webinar and we'll just give a few minutes to probably somebody who is running late. And so in about 3 minutes, we will start officially. If you could just write in your name on the chat and where you tuned from, we would really appreciate. We have about 40 participants already, and this is very encouraging. Notice we have Monica from Thika, Ali Akida, wow, my classmate joining from the United States, is Naziwa from Uganda, Marion from Thika, Liz, great that you're here. We have Veronica from Nairobi, KMTC, that's really nice. We have Nasim from Webuye. Mercy of Nakuru, we see you. Zippy is always here. Thank you for tuning in. We will also be live on Facebook. So in case somebody probably didn't register or might experience a bit of challenge joining the webinar here, they could still join us on Facebook. And if I'm not wrong, it will be on YouTube, either live or after the session. So a big word of karibu to everyone. Stay put. Thank you. Okay, good evening once again. We have quorum and we'd like to officially start. My name is David Musyoki, and I'm so happy that we made it. I work for Kehpca as a director of programs, and behind the scenes is Kehpca staff, making sure that we doing well and we are well prepared and any troubleshooting. We're glad to have Ross Wakiria, a beautiful lady over there, and not only beautiful, but also well-informed. a consultant and a trainer on finance and retirement issues. And having her here is such a privilege. She's well informed about the topic, and I know there are many questions in terms of at what point do I start preparing for retirement? I have, bits and pieces of property, some declared, some not declared. Other people feel they are still too young to start investing for retirement. Others feel probably they might be too late, like they have a year or two before they officially go for retirement. So what are those, what from a consultant and from an informed perspective, and she's a writer, so she will tell us, I'm sure, about retirement. So I'm sure some of the questions that are running through our minds, other people are in different states in terms of some in Kenya, others not in Kenya, but this is a topic for everyone. So since I'm not the speaker today, I just want to introduce Rose and bring her on board to take us through the session. She has some PowerPoint presentation, and then after the presentation, we'll have an interaction of question and answer. So you could keep your questions or write them on the chat, and we will be responding to them at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, and welcome, Rose.
Thank you very much, David, for having me here, and thank you for that very good introduction. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad that you made it and you're here, and I pray that the 1 or so hour we are going to spend together is going to be beneficial, mutually beneficial. So by introduction, yes, my name is Rose Wakiria. I'm a personal finance and retirement planning consultant and trainer, and I'm also an author. I have written a book on retirement. I don't know whether it's clear, you probably have another image. The book is called Retirement Planning, a Holistic Guide to a Satisfying Season. So my passion and my desire is to help my clients and their families to manage their finances well, so that they stop being the main issue about their lives, to enable them live a balanced life and to prepare well for the eventual transition, which is retirement. So I do that through training, and I also do one-on-one coaching with individuals and families, where I help them to prepare their financial and retirement plans. And I also help them to implement and work with them even as they transition into retirement. So today we are going to have this conversation on retirement. It's quite a timely conversation, and I think very many people at the moment are very receptive to it. And partly because of COVID. I think COVID showed us that retirement can happen suddenly, and therefore we really need to be prepared. So why should we have this conversation? First, because age catches up very, very fast. There's a clip that was circulating the other day on WhatsApp about how age catches up. So you have these young girls going to a nightclub, and all of a sudden no one is asking for their ID because the bouncer at the door can tell you're above the age of majority. And then there's this young man who gets into the car and there's loud music, and he actually turns down the volume because now he cannot stand that loud music. It is almost noise. And the last one was, which I think a few of us probably have experienced, when you have to fill certain forms online and you have to pick your year of birth. You realize that it's not on the front page and you have to keep scrolling to get to your year of birth. I'm a victim of that. I find myself there. But it's interesting because it's just the other day I graduated from college, but that was 21 years ago. But it just feels like just the other day. So age catches up very fast. And so if you don't start planning early for retirement, you'll soon realize that you have a very short time to retirement, or you're just about to step into retirement. So it's important that everyone, starting from the person who is starting their first job today, they need to start having this conversation, because the earlier you start, the better prepared you will be for that season. The other reason why we need to talk about retirement is that we retire from work, but we don't retire from life. So we continue having bills, we continue having goals and things that we want to achieve. And most of these things will require finances. The other thing we've seen also, COVID has really highlighted it, is that we have no certainty about when we are going to retire. Yes, we might be working for organizations that have a retirement age, but that is not a guarantee that you will retire at the retirement age. You could lose your job, or you could even lose the ability to generate an income. You could become sick or disabled, and for some reason you can't continue working. So we need to be always prepared for the unpredictable, because we don't know at what point we'll be forced to go into retirement. And for you in the medical profession, you agree with me, retirement in most cases will coincide with old age, and old age has its own issues, especially the health issues. So the energy is diminishing. You could be having health issues. And even if you had an opportunity to work, you might not be able to work. Therefore, you need to have finances that will actually sort you out during that period. And this is a transition that has a lot of impact: financial, social, psychological. It actually affects the whole being. And we are going to see some of those effects. And also tied to that is that retirement is a family transition. It does not affect just the person who's retiring, but it affects the spouse, it affects the children, it affects the people they interact with. And therefore, we need to plan this not just as individuals, but even as a family. Because, for instance, if your parents did not prepare well for retirement, probably you're being forced to take care of them. You have to send some support, or you have to live with them. Therefore, it's important that you engage the whole family, because if we don't do that, then we will keep on perpetuating that cycle whereby the next generation has to take care of the previous generation. Yet we know that the social fabric is not as tight as it used to be. Therefore, we need to look at it. So retirement is what we call the last and the longest, potentially the longest transition. And it is worth all our attention. We need to look at it. We need to prepare for it. It can be quite some time, a chunk of our lifetime. So if we really want to enjoy it, then we must do something about it. So I'm going to project my presentation. So as we have this conversation, you can see it and you can follow along. So I believe you can see it. So then retirement, I have described retirement in my book in terms of what it is not. Sometimes we tend to know what retirement is, but in my book, I have chosen to define it what it is not. It is not a weekend trip to a familiar place, but it is more like a mandatory relocation to a foreign land. It is leaving behind the familiar and embracing the unfamiliar. That is what retirement is. Most of us will not have retired before. It will be our first time. We may have heard about retirement. We may know people who are in retirement, but we have not experienced it. And for majority of us, there will be no coming back. There'll be no coming back to the work environment. So we are living what we have built over time, what we know, and we are starting a new life that we really don't know much about. So if you knew that you had to relocate to another country, if you know that you have to leave your motherland, you have to go to a country you've never been before, and that will become your new home, what kind of preparation would you make? So if I may tie that to your own retirement preparation today, what preparation are you making for that transition? Because it is coming. If God gives you long life, you'll definitely retire. What preparation are you making? Is it preparation like you're going for a trip, or is it preparation like you're actually going to another country? I think that is a challenge that we all need to answer. And we'll do a little bit evaluation as we go along to see how well we are doing. So it's important that we plan for this season, as I have alluded before, because when you look at the life cycle, we can divide life into 3 stages. between birth and about 20, 25 years, we are growing up, we are gaining skills, we are getting ready for the labor market. And during that time, we are dependent financially on somebody, either our parents or either a guardian or somebody else. Somebody else pays the bills. But then we are ushered into this economically productive season where majority of us are, which can be between 25 years and 60. Some careers you can continue until later. But on average, like in Kenya, the official retirement age is 60. We can work with that. So during this period, you are ideally financially independent. You're able to take care of your finances. You're able to take care of your needs. But the next season, which could actually be a long season, and I believe for you doctors, you're aware of this, lifespan and how long people live. It can be another 20, 30, or even for some people close to 40 years. That could be just as long as you worked for some people, or as long as you spent the time in school. So retirement is not a short stint, it's actually a long period. So will you be dependent or will you be independent in that season? That of course depends on what you do during the economically productive season. When it comes to insurance companies who normally provide retirement income in form of annuities, when they are calculating how much they need to pay you for the rest of your life, they normally assume that you're going to live up to age 85. That is the assumption. Of course, there are some who will die early and they'll take care of those who die later. So depending on where you are and when you expect to retire, just think that you could actually be in retirement. You could live to 85 years or beyond. Now, what preparation have you made, or what preparation are you making for that season when, for majority of us, will not be able to generate an income through employment? So retirement then can become the beginning of a new season. For some, it will be a peaceful, restful season, but for some, it will be the beginning of a storm. It will be the beginning of a very difficult life. So it's important that we choose. We have the choice here. We can decide what kind of life we want to have. If we prepare well, then we will have a peaceful or a satisfying season. It doesn't mean it won't have its own challenges, it will, but there's a lot you can do to mitigate against most of the challenges. So we need to prepare for retirement, because those who prepare well, they normally feel that they are ready for the unexpected. And even when they are forced into early retirement, they're able to adjust well during that transition because they were ready. It could happen to them anytime they have set their affairs in order. The other thing is that when you are well prepared in retirement, you experience dignity because you're able to live the kind of life that you would want to. If you'll not be going into old age poverty, having lived probably a good life earlier on. So it bestows dignity when you're able to take care of yourself. And of course, being financially independent throughout your career, taking that into retirement, it's one of the most desirable things. You don't want to be a burden or dependent on your children or somebody else. When you're ready for retirement, you're likely to enjoy better health, in the sense that one of the things that you're going to minimize is stress. And we know stress, I'm talking to the experts, you know the effect of stress on physical health. So if you're ready for retirement, chances are you'll make a smoother transition than somebody who was not. You're going to have less problems and probably you're going to enjoy good health. Healthy relationships. As you prepare for retirement, as we will see, you'll come to recognize that your immediate family is the bedrock of your support system in retirement. So if you're preparing for it, you will actually ensure that you nurture that relationship throughout your retirement, throughout your career, so that it serves you well in retirement. Otherwise, if you're not thinking retirement, you can't neglect your spouse, you can neglect your children, you don't build a relationship. And then in retirement, it would be very naive of you to think that now they'll just turn around and be supportive. You need those relationships now and into retirement. And of course, as you prepare for retirement, you'll be thinking about which community will I be retiring to? Will I remain where I am? Will I need to move? And if I'll need to move to a different location, can I start building relationships there? And of course, one of the things that makes life meaningful is having a purpose. And if you wake up in the morning in retirement and you have nothing to do, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how happy you are with relationships, if you feel like your life does not amount to something, it is actually going to stress you psychologically. So it will affect your enjoyment. So as you prepare for retirement, then we'll need to look at all these things, because combined or in a holistic way, this is what will ensure that you enjoy your retirement. So when we talk to most of the people who are approaching retirement, or those who are in retirement, and many of my clients who come to me, many of them will be in their 50s. Majority of them say they are not ready for retirement. They had not prepared well for retirement. And these are just some of the things that they say. Oh, I was too busy, or even now some people are saying, I'm too busy, I'll think about retirement later. Once I finish this project, once I finish this MBA, once I finish what I'm doing. Some people just feel that their finances are in a mess. I mean, how do I even start planning when I can't even make ends meet now? Some people just don't know how to go about it. Some people believe their children will take care of them, and I like challenging them. How well are you taking care of your parents? And how well are your children seeing you taking care of your parents, so that they can learn from you and do the same for you? Some people think it's too early. They're in their 20s and they can't even think about 5 years from now. And now you're telling them to start thinking about 30 years from now. Are you out of your mind? So it becomes very difficult for them to plan. Some people are just pure optimists, and they think things will take care of themselves, or what will be, will be. And for some probably who are saving through retirement benefits, they think that is being taken care of. And we'll see that that is just part of it. There is a lot more. So amongst these, some of these reasons, what is, if you are not well prepared for retirement, then what is holding you back? What reason can you relate with? And if you identify with one, then what can you do to actually go around it or work around it and ensure that you prepare? We'll address some of these things, but not all. Now, the main reason why people are not ready for retirement is because they do not prioritize retirement planning. They prioritize many, many other things: children's education, they prioritize owning land, they prioritize friendships, they prioritize anything else. But somehow retirement never makes the top priorities. So it keeps on being pushed, and as you push it and you're drawing closer to retirement, at one point it will force itself at the top of the list. But probably you'll start feeling that you have very little time, or you don't have the resources that you need to save for the retirement that you need. So I would encourage you today to consider putting retirement planning as one of your top priorities, because it is what you do during this life, during your career, that will actually support what your life in retirement. So if you don't do something now, then you'll definitely are going to struggle. So ensure that retirement planning is one of your top priorities, especially when it comes to finances, but even in a holistic way. Now, why we need to do that is that life is full of transitions. We keep moving from one stage to the next stage to the next stage. There's a research that was done that says that we sort of go through about 61 life transitions. And some of these transitions are huge ones. So if you're going to go through 61 transitions, then it means every year or every 18 months, you're going through a major transition. Think about transitions like starting school, finishing school, starting a career, changing jobs, starting a family, and those kind of transitions. There are many, and some of them will come in very quick succession depending on the life stage. So a lot of things will appear like their priorities, and retirement will probably not appear to be one. And it will be now top of your mind when now you are in mid-career, in your 40s and going into your 50s. So most of these transitions will require finances. There are very few transitions that put money in our pocket. Most of them take money out of our pocket. When you have to get an addition to your family, I mean, you're adding an extra mouth. When they go to school, when they go to college, it's all money out. So it is important then that we prioritize retirement, because the transitions will be many, and this is the last transition. It might be forgotten. So what then am I talking about when I say we need to prioritize it right from our first paycheck? It basically means as you build your career, you're building an alternative lifestyle. So as you start earning and you start developing a lifestyle, a certain standard of living, it is important to know that these finances are still the same ones that fund other lifestyles. What can I do to ensure that I'm building them together? It will take you like 30 to 35 years in your career. It could take you the same amount in retirement. So it is important that you also take a lot of time to prepare for retirement. So build the two in a parallel way. You don't have to fund them the same way. You don't need to fund them the same way, but they need to be built together. And so when we look at life with a long-term perspective, when we think about there'll be a life beyond this career, then we are likely to make better financial decisions, because you have to think about now and you also have to think about later. So work with the end in mind across all life stages, including when you're just starting out in your career. Now, just to delve deeper on what kind of preparation you need to make, there's a study that was done at Harvard. It's still going on. It started in 1938. It's still on. It's one of the longest studies that have been done. And what they did is that they took 238 men who had just joined the university, first year at Harvard. And they also went into the inner city, Boston inner city, and picked 456 men as well. The whole study initially started with men. So basically they were comparing people from disadvantaged environment or upbringing, plus some of the best minds in the world. And later on, many decades later, they incorporated the wives and the children. But it has been interesting to see that the outcome of that cohort was basically anyone in the, it is just the general population. So they had very many successful professionals. They even had one US president, that is JF Kennedy, was part of that study. Some people became mad, some people became alcoholics, basically the general population. So it is quite representative of all of us. And the research question was, what makes a good life? So when they were young, of course, most of the answers were money, fame, achievement. That is what they thought was a good life. But it was interesting to see as these people aged, and especially now, majority of them towards the end of life or in retirement, this is what they said makes a good life. They said good health, sustained sense of well-being, social engagement, and productivity. So it's interesting to note that they didn't state money as one of the main things that make a good life. But what we'll see is that money will support this. Money is more of an enabler than the actual thing that you need. So what will matter the most in retirement is good health, your sustained sense of well-being. This has a lot to do with your mental health, your emotional health, your social engagement. Do you have a support system around you? Do you have loving relationships? And what you're doing with your life. Do you feel like your life counts? Those are the things that are going to mean the most. And even when we think about life, this is true. When you're young, we don't want to believe this is true. But as you get the money, you come to realize that money does not satisfy fully. There's still something that these are the things that will need have a space in our lives. Therefore, these are the things that we need to think about. And I just want to address health here because I'm talking to health experts. And I know I am telling you things that you know. But I've also interacted with a healthcare organization. I did a training in one of the organizations in Kenya. And one of the things I realized is that the health professionals, I think, I have no research to say that they don't take care of their health the most, but the kind of advantage everybody would think that you have, we find that you actually don't practice that. So I'll still say it even if you know it. So you know what smoking does to health, maintaining a good weight, daily movement. Yes, in your work, probably you move a lot. Use of alcohol, quality nutritious diets, sleeping, both quality and quantity, emotional connectedness, mental engagement. This is constantly engaging your mind to remain active. And also we need to build other resources within ourselves, things like gratitude and resilience. I just want to get this out of the way because you know these things. But one of the biggest expense in retirement, and probably the only expense that tends to grow in retirement is healthcare. So you need to take care of your health to manage the resources that you will need then. If you don't take care of it now, then you are likely to suffer from poor health. And then even if you make the money, chances are you'll use a lot of it in paying healthcare bills. Now, we have insurance and we discussed that, but we know that insurance does not pay everything. And if your health is really bad, you could burst your limits. And it's also very expensive, especially the seniors cover. The minute you hit 60, 65, the premiums are quite high. So we need to take care of our health right from when we are young, so that we increase chances of having good health later on in life. But if you abuse our bodies, then we are likely to have problems. And also, for you to enjoy life, you need the body. There's no way you're going to enjoy life. There's no way you're going to enjoy money without your body. So it's not just about minimizing healthcare, but for you to fully enjoy your time in retirement, you need to be healthy. So basically, when I talk about building a parallel lifestyle, we're talking about a 360 degrees approach to preparing for retirement. It's not just financial. You need to take care of your health, your relationships. You need a home in retirement. That is one of the important things that you should have. You need to know where your finances or your income will be coming from. You need to continue learning and growing. You need to know what will take care of my need for achievement in that season. What will I do with my time in terms of leisure? Will I have the freedom to do what I want to do? What kind of work will I engage in, whether paid work or non-paid? But the point is, what will I do to be productive? And also, whatever it is that I'll be doing, will it be purposeful or will it be meaningless? So when you think retirement, think about all this. We are basically looking at quality of life, not necessarily standard of living. Standard of living is just the financial aspect of it, the quantitative part of it. But as you notice that the bulk of life in retirement is basically qualitative. Therefore, take care of everything. So for instance, how are you prepared today, or how are you preparing today for retirement? Because everything you're building now, hopefully you're planning that it will help you in retirement. So what are your sources of income today? If you had to retire today, what would fund your retirement? Do you have non-employment sources of income, sort of non-salaried sort of sources of income? Because as you transition into retirement, what basically you're hoping to do is to replace your salary. So that needs to start early. Where is your income coming from today? Do you have a retirement home? Do you plan on having one? What is your health status? Are you taking care of your health? What is your relationship with your spouse and your children? There's one study that was also done that said that the most critical factor for your enjoyment in retirement is not money. Money is very important, but it's not critical. What is critical is your relationship with your spouse, not even with your children, with your spouse. Remember, this is the person you're probably going to spend most of your time with. So that relationship, the quality of it will determine whether you'll be happy or you will be unhappy. What other social support are you building? Is it just people who add value to your life, and those who don't add value to your life, you really don't want anything to do with them? During that time, you'll actually need a multi-generational support system. You'll need young people, old people, your peers. You'll need everyone who can actually support you. So even as you build your relationships, are they just at work, or do you have relationships outside work that could actually support you? Today, are you living on purpose? It doesn't mean that when you retire, if you've not been living on purpose, you'll automatically know what your purpose is and live that life. So it's important that when you get that nudge in your heart that you feel like there's more to life than this, you don't just suppress it, but start exploring and finding out what are those things that I feel inclined to do? What are those things that I enjoy to do, whether they bring money or not? What are those things I would do even if no one paid me? And those can give you an indication of some of the things you can do or where you can spend your time in retirement. So I know the majority of you joined in today because you really wanted to know the financial preparation of it. So I've sort of taken care of a bit of the non-financial, and now we can focus on the financial preparation. So the way to prepare for your retirement is to define the lifestyle you want to lead in retirement. Now, To a 25-year-old, they're wondering, what are you talking about? I don't even have a lifestyle right now. Yes, but you can have a vague idea of the kind of lifestyle that you want. For those in their 40s and 50s, you probably, that lifestyle is shaping up. Now, once you have that lifestyle, for example, lifestyle will involve things like, where do you want to live? What do you want to do? Will you be working? Will you be doing business? Will you be resting? Will you be traveling? What exactly will you be doing? Once you define that lifestyle, then you need to estimate the cost of that lifestyle. Now, sometimes you overcomplicate things and saying it's 20 years from now, I don't know what it will cost. My recommendation, use today's cost of living. Estimate that cost based on today's cost. That will give you an indication, and then we can factor other things like inflation and all that. So you can assume, for example, if you're in your late 40s, your children are probably in high school, some in university. You can envisage that time when you're 60. Hopefully they will all be out of home and independent. So if your children are not there, how much would be your food budget? If it was just you and your spouse, where would you be going? What kind of fuel expenses would you be having? Your health, where is it right now? Hopefully it will be good then, but you can estimate what kind of medical expenses you will have. You can project what you have now. It's not very difficult to estimate the cost of the desired lifestyle. And then once you know the cost of living that you'll get, and one of the best ways you can do that is just to come up with a monthly figure and say that, and I'll show an example. Probably I just need 100,000 per month and I'll be okay. I will not need support from my children. Then you need to determine what will be the source of that income. And I believe this is where majority of us struggle to ask ourselves, what investments will I need to make to ensure that I have this income? And we'll deal with that. And then once you deal with that, then the next thing will be, you'll need to invest your savings so that you grow them, so that you don't have to look for the actual amount of money you'll need in retirement. But if you start saving now, it will actually grow over time using compound interest, and your contribution can be just a small proportion of the entire amount that will be needed. So this is the formula, the financial formula for getting to know how much money you need to retire. So basically what we are saying is that you use your income or your salary today to support your living expenses. We need to replace that salary. We need to replace that salary, probably at a different level. For some, their cost of living will probably still continue going up, and for some, the cost of living will actually go down in retirement. So can you do that? And probably the question I would ask, do you have a monthly budget today? Because that is one way of helping you to define your lifestyle. Because if you have a budget, then you'd know where your money is going today. And then it would be very, very easy to just make adjustments on that budget. So if you don't have a budget, please start planning your monthly income, your cash flows, because that will help you continue with the planning process. So the next step then becomes, once you know your lifestyle, once you know the cost of it and you determine the sources, then you invest. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that start thinking by having the end in mind. You don't think just based on today, but you think about that time. Once you have the end in mind, the picture will become a little bit clearer. You'll cast a vision for your retirement, and that will help you to actually prepare now. If you don't start with the end in mind, you're not likely to make the best of decisions. So one of the things you'll need to take care of, retirement home, because probably apart from medical expenses for those whose health is not good, housing can be the single largest expense in a household. So there are various decisions you'll need to make regarding retirement home. The first one is, how many homes do you intend to have? Some people own homes where they work, but they probably do not want to retire there. They want to relocate up country. So how many homes will you have? Will you have one up country? Will you maintain one home here in Nairobi? So where will you retire? Which will be your primary retirement? Which will be your primary retirement location? Then the other question that we need to think about is, how big will be your retirement home? Now, this is one of the things that we see many people making mistakes when they are planning their retirement home. They would probably did not own a home earlier. They remained in rented homes, or they were housed by their employers. And then all of a sudden they have this dream of owning a big home, but in retirement, a time probably when they least need a big home. Their children are independent, they're running their own homes. So you're likely to have this big home, which you won't use it, and the cost of maintaining it might be quite high. So part of what I do working with some of my retirement clients who are transitioning into retirement, a number of them actually find the need to actually transition, move from the big homes they have to actually smaller homes. Now, the other thing I talked about is about your relationship with your spouse, but there's also another aspect when it comes to retirement that many people will experience widowhood in retirement. And particularly women, statistically, I don't think we have statistics here in Kenya, I don't have them, but in other countries where there's such statistics, they talk about 80% of women will experience widowhood. So even if we don't work with 80, basically we are talking about a significant number of people will experience widowhood. It's unlikely that both of you will die at the same time. So even when you're thinking about a home, for majority of people, you'll probably need a home for the two of you, or you will be single by then, and probably a guest room or something. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a big home if you have the resources to build one or to buy one and to maintain one. But if you're struggling, if you don't have the finances, then it is very, very important that you consider where you put your money. The trick here is usually that some people during their career, they also go into big homes because when they were making the decision, home ownership decision, they didn't have the end in mind. They probably bought a home at a time when their family was the largest. All the children were at home. They had a lot of visitors. They had house girls. They had all those. So if you buy a house based on that time, then you're likely not to need that big house. Now, as I said, if you have the resources, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have the resources, you might get into the trap where you'll be, your biggest asset will be your home, which we say a home is not an investment because you don't intend to sell it. It is not giving you an income. You tie in your money there. And for some people, if it's a mortgage until retirement, and then you don't have resources to invest in other investments that will give you an income, which you will need in retirement. So especially many people in employment, we have that problem where we say they are house rich and cash poor because they invested so much in a home and they didn't have money to put in other things. So that's a critical decision. What type of a home are you going to have? And for you people who work, especially with people late in life, people need to ensure that their home will be retirement ready. You're going to have this home that you're going to use until end of life. The home should support you until end of life. So the kind of floor materials you use, the kind of width when it comes to doors, the kind of support in a home, make it in such a way that it will be able to sustain you. And when you do that, then it will actually be an easier thing. Of course, there's a whole debate going around now and very common, and we are discussing it a lot in the retirement forums. Is it time we had retirement homes? Is it time now we had affordable long-term care homes where people probably with health conditions can actually stay there? That's a conversation, and I'm hoping that we'll have investors go into that area. So when it comes to the next big cost that you're likely to have will be your healthcare costs. And I encourage everyone to have insurance. So you'll need to take care of medical insurance premiums. But like I said, insurance does not necessarily provide full coverage. We all know about the sub-limits, and you might not even be able to afford that huge insurance. So it's also important to maintain a medical fund that could actually cover those expenses that are not paid for, or if you burst your insurance limits. So healthcare will normally come in those two: insurance and a medical fund. So when it comes to retirement, just trying to paint that picture, there are three things that you really need to focus on. The first one is you need to have cash. So you're in your old age, you need to take care of something. you need to have that money now. So what we normally say is that what is most important in retirement is liquidity, ability to convert what you have into cash and be able to meet your need there and then. Because if you can't do that, then all the stress and dependence and now asking your children or other people to take care of you sets in. And that is not where we want to find ourselves. So even as you do your investments, you need to ensure that in retirement, most of your investments are able to generate an income that you'll be able to use to fund your lifestyle. The other thing we need to take care of is debt. There's nothing as bad as that mental burden that you would be having if you are still in debt at retirement. One of my clients was a senior official in a circle, and what she told me, a big circle where people earn a lot of money and majority of people have good pension, they have very good pension. But what she told me is that anyone who retired with a loan, 100% without fail defaulted. They defaulted at one point. So you don't want to carry this financial burden into retirement. Try and clear your debt as early as possible. It is possible to do a lot of things without debt. Culture teaches us that you must have a loan. You cannot do anything without a loan. But remember, you always repay the entire loan and you always pay plus interest. So you actually end up doing the same thing with the money, only that you probably would do it a little bit later. With proper financial planning, you can actually do a lot, and you can actually do almost everything you need to do without debt. But even if you work with debt, a few years before retirement, please make sure you're out of debt. And remember, we said you don't know when you're going into retirement. It could just come suddenly. So it's important to minimize debt and make use wise, only take what we call the wise debt. Only use debt for assets, not for consumables. Things that grow in value and things that put money into your pocket. And of course, even as you invest, the other thing we'll need to take care of is the cost of living, the whole issue of inflation. Don't play so safe with your money such that you keep it where it is not earning any interest. You're putting a lot of money in, just keeping it just in the bank account, where 50 bob today, last year it could buy this year it cannot buy the same thing. You really need to take care of that. So ensure that your investments are growing. And as you move across your career, your risk tolerance will keep on changing. When you're young, you can venture into risky investments. But as you approach midlife, then you realize that you've accumulated a number of assets. You don't want to risk them. So you move into preservation of assets. And then when you're approaching retirement, then you need to convert your assets into liquid assets. So I just have an illustration I want to share that can just give you an indication on that process I've talked about, defining a lifestyle, estimating the costs, investing the funds so that they grow. This is just an example. So the assumption I am making here is that this is somebody who is currently employed. They are saving through a retirement benefit scheme, so they will have a pension at the end of it. And I'm also assuming that they will be debt-free when they retire, and they will also have a retirement home. So they are not paying rent, and they're not paying a mortgage. So we will look at the incomes later. Let's start from giving. What we know is that whether you have an income or not, you're likely to give. I mean, things happen, you need to support family, you need to support people going through difficult situations. It's important to budget for giving. And we also call to give generously. God has blessed us, not just to hold everything to ourselves, but to share with those who are in need. Then the main focus should be the living expenses, which are regular expenses. And we'll also look to my right on the irregular expenses. So the regular expenses will be things like housing. So housing here, there's no rent, but I'm thinking about you need to maintain your home. Probably there'll be a few repairs you'll need to do monthly. You'll need to pay utilities, water, electricity, internet. You'll need cooking gas if you're using gas or whatever fuel it is that you're using. Everything you need to ensure the home is running. I have done an estimate of 20,000, and this could vary depending on where you live and your family size and how your lifestyle. Food, I'm assuming this is a family of two, as just the spouse, you and your spouse. I don't know if you can finish 20,000, probably you can eat more. This is just an estimate. You might maintain some workers, maybe a house girl or somebody who comes to help you with cleaning. Fuel, you might not be moving a lot, and so this is just an estimate. Probably I need to increase that now that the fuel prices have gone up. Entertainment, you'll probably hang out with your friends once in a while. You might buy clothes, maybe not every month, but probably this is just an estimate per month. And you could have miscellaneous other costs that we might not be able to articulate here. So your living expenses could probably be around 65. Now, this is somebody also whose health is okay. They are not struggling in terms of health. So there will be irregular expenses that you don't pay for every month. And these tend to be the ones that most people struggle with, because when they are due and you don't have the money, then you struggle, you have to ask people for help. And this is what causes a lot of stress. So things like car insurance, some people pay monthly, some people pay once or twice. If you have a car, you'll be maintaining that car maybe several times in a year. Medical insurance, this is just a simple estimate of medical insurance, and I'm assuming you're 60. That is when your premiums are likely to be here. As you grow older, you'll need to increase the premiums. Just in case you have a child who's still in school and maybe finishing school, I just put an estimate there, probably a child who's in public university last year, 4th year or whatever, last year in university. You could have certain memberships. For example, you could be in a club or maybe their chamas you normally contribute to, or whatever memberships that you could be contributing to, some licenses you have to pay and such kind of things, and just another miscellaneous. So you could have irregular expenses of 600,000, and this can be translated into a monthly figure of about 50,000 shillings. So if, for example, you are saving in a pension and your pension can give you an income of 60,000 per month, this would be a figure slightly higher than 6 million today. You are retiring the figure of about 6 million today from a retirement benefit scheme, and you're retiring at 60. It will give you roughly around that. Less tax. Tax is usually very minimal. And then I'm assuming you have some other incomes. I assume you did some investments. Probably you have a rental home or something, or wherever. There's something you do and it gives you a regular income. If you don't have that, then you remove that. So if you look at that, you realize that that income cannot sustain your lifestyle in retirement. You will need help. If not, you'll be forced to downgrade your lifestyle. So probably you decide, I'll get out of these memberships. I'll probably not own a car so that I don't spend on maintenance and fuel, those kind of things. You might have to downgrade, or you might downgrade also your living expenses. That means you would need other sources of income to cover that. So today, that is what I want us to look at. You have your pension, which we can estimate what it will give you in retirement, assuming it grows at a certain pace. You probably have another source of income right now, or if you don't have, then where can you invest your money to ensure that you will have other sources of income? So this is just an example of one of the things that you can do and arrive at other sources of income. And we'll discuss the figures later. But some of the areas where you can create sources of income is you can have rental properties. You can invest in treasury bonds. You can invest in money market accounts. You can invest in shares that pay dividends. You can own a business that either pays you a salary or you're able to get profits out of it, or you could continue working and it gives you an income. Some people normally put some money in life insurances and they will mature at one point. You could get a lump sum. And the last one, sorry, there's a typo. You could sell an asset. That is just an example of some of those things. So when you start then you'll have to start thinking about, how do I invest my assets? Now, every investment you make normally meets one or more of these objectives. So you have to invest intentionally with the purpose of having liquidity in retirement. So many of the investments that we make today are mainly focused on growth. For example, when you put money in retirement benefits, the main focus will be growth during when you're saving, but in retirement, you can convert that into liquid cash. It will give you an income. But most of us put money in land, whether we buy land for prospective purposes, and especially that, we are focusing on growth. I'll put in 1 million, I want it to grow to 3 million. That is growth, but land is not liquid. It is good in terms of growth, but it is not good when it comes to liquidity. So it might serve you now, but it might not serve you well in retirement. Now, a rental property could give you growth and income. So when you develop that land and you have tenants, and then other investments will give you liquidity. Liquidity are those investments that you can easily convert into cash without losing value. So think about converting something within a few days, a few months, or up to 1 year. And then the other investment objective you will be having when you're making every investment is risk. How much risk do you want to take? So for example, if you take land, the risk might not be so high. If you take a bond, the risk might be very, very low. If you put your money in a money market account, which gives you very high liquidity, the risk could be very, very low. If you put your money in business, the risk could be very high. Chances of the business making it or not making it are high. So you really have to weigh, and that's what I was saying, as you progress through your career, your risk tolerance will change, and you need to adapt it as you progress. So what are some of the investments that will give you income in retirement? Now we are focusing about investing for retirement. Remember, you can invest for many other things, including school fees and many other things that you want to do. But for purposes of this talk, we are talking about the assets that you'd be investing to support you in retirement. So some of the investments that you can make today is in products like annuities. Now, annuities, we have two products. We have what we call an immediate annuity, and most people know this product in the sense that when they're retiring, you can convert your money into an income for life. That is what you call an immediate life annuity. It pays you for life regardless of how long you live, subject to a minimum of years which you choose, which ranges from 0 to 10 to 20 years. We also have what we call deferred annuities, and people who get lump sums amount of money, you can actually do that, where you take a lump sum amount, you give it to an insurance company for the purposes of your retirement. So the money remains locked for retirement. And the fact that that money remains locked, then it grows very fast because you can't access it until the date when you've specified. This is one of the best ways of catching up. For those who are late in saving, you can use that. Another investment that gives you money is income drawdown. We have an income drawdown fund, which acts like a pension, only that it works like reverse. For pension, you're building your savings, but an income drawdown converts your savings into an income as they continue growing. So it is like pension, only that you can access money on a monthly basis or an annual basis, whatever frequency you choose. Now, most of the products we have here are for retirement, but it doesn't mean that you cannot use it even for savings, because you can put money in there, but you choose not to access it. And then you can access it much later when you need it. Bonds are some of the best products you can actually use to invest. These are government, you lend money to the government, or you lend money to corporates. They are called corporate bonds. For startup, I encourage people to start with treasury bonds, because we know the government, in as much as we know it is taking in a lot of debt, it also remains the one organization that has the ability to pay debt, regardless of how big the debt is. It has the machinery, it can print money, it can increase taxation, options that even private companies might not have. Rental property will give you rental income. Investing in good shares, in profitable organizations, the ones that give regular income, dividends that can give you an income in retirement. And there's also what you call unit trusts. These are products that are normally pooled resources from investors, and then they invest the money, and you can actually access your interests from there on a monthly basis or whatever frequency. Now, income is something that puts, investments that generate an income put money in your pocket. But investments that are liquid are investments that you can easily sell or convert into cash. So a bond is one of them. You can trade a bond in the stock exchange, and you can actually get your money back. Unit trusts, you can liquidate your money within days. Quoted shares, the fact that they're listed in the stock market, you can also sell them through the NSE, and you'll be able to get your money back. So these are just some of the examples of investments that you can make to prepare for retirement. Now, when it comes to income, it is very, very important that we distinguish between what we call guaranteed income, regular income, and other incomes. Now, in retirement, what you need is to ensure that you have guaranteed income that covers your basic living expenses, those things that you must do. For example, you must eat, you must run your home. If you have some health conditions that you have to manage, you must buy your medicine, you must see a doctor. You need guaranteed income for that. Now, not all investments give you guaranteed income. Retirement benefits will normally give you guaranteed income because of the way they are designed. Annuities, you can design them to give you a guaranteed income for life. Income drawdown, mainly the law requires for a minimum of 10 years, but you can also design them to be to give you an income for a long time, even for as long as you live, by ensuring that the amount you're withdrawing is not depleting the fund. Bonds can give you a guaranteed income in the sense that once you take a bond, you're given specific dates when the government will put money into your bank account. So it is guaranteed, without fail, it will come. Unit trusts, it is guaranteed. I have put an asterisk there. The amount may not be guaranteed, but the ability to receive money from a unit trust, especially the money market fund, is guaranteed because they always have a positive interest rate. Now, regular income is income that comes regularly from time to time, but it is not guaranteed that it will be there every month. And that is where rental income comes in the sense that if you don't have a tenant and you have one property, then you won't have an income that month. So if you are depending on that to take care of your living expenses, you will struggle. Business income, we know that business environment is volatile. Sometimes you make money, sometimes you don't make money, or you make money, but it's not enough. It becomes a regular income. If you are working, some people continue working in retirement. That salary, I would not want to put it guaranteed because we don't know for how long you'd live. It is more of a regular income. And then there are other incomes that normally will come mainly as a lump sum or unpredictable. If you sell property or assets, you'll get a lump sum. If you had life insurances, then you'll get the maturities. You could get an inheritance. You could get gifts from your children or from other people. So for you to be comfortable in retirement, it's important that you ensure you have guaranteed income, and then you supplement that guaranteed income with regular and other incomes. So where do you invest? How do you invest? I'm just trying to give you guidelines on if you are to start today, how would you go about it? For retirement benefits, if you have an employer scheme, please continue investing there. And please don't access your benefits when you change jobs. And especially when you're moving to another job. You already have an income, leave retirement benefits invested. Most people think they'll do well investing that money, but you are removing money from an environment which is invested by professionals, and most of us are not professionals in investment. Very few people make good money when they take their retirement benefits. Majority use the money for consumables. You just need a minimum of 500 shillings if you're not in an employer scheme and you'd want to start an individual retirement plan. And even if you're in an employer scheme, you could actually start an individual retirement plan where you can actually put in money as you get it. Because with the employer, it is from your salary, but you might have other sources of income. For a bond, a treasury bond, you'll invest through the central bank. You need to open a central depository and settlement account, similar to what you open with for shares, but this is different for central bank. And the minimum you need to invest in a bond is 50,000. And you can invest any amount and you can keep on investing so that you build a parallel source of income. Annuities, most of them will require lump sum, say from $500,000, and these are purely provided by insurance companies. To be precise, life insurance companies. Property, you can decide to buy, or you can decide to buy and build, or you can decide to take a mortgage, but we know that property will normally require lump sums. Unit trusts, the minimum, you can join a fund with as little as 500, and these are normally provided by fund managers who are registered by Capital Markets Authority. Shares, it depends with what kind of business you're investing in. If it is your own business, then you put in the capital. If you want to invest in quoted shares, the minimum you can buy is 100 shares in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So for example, a company like Safaricom, which is doing quite well, you just need about 4,500 to buy 100 shares. And you can actually do that on a monthly basis and build a portfolio. And of course, for those with huge amounts, there's what we call wealth managed solutions. If you have a huge amount of money starting from 5 to 10 million, you can work with fund managers to build for you a portfolio of investments to ensure that you're able to meet your goals. So they'll probably put some money in bonds, they'll put some money in unit trust, they'll put some money elsewhere, but you will discuss with them, you'll sit down with them and they will actually do that. So those are some of the avenues and some of the minimums that you require to actually start investing for retirement. And in the book Retirement Planning, I have discussed those things in details, how you invest in retirement, and also to ensure that your money is able to sustain you through retirement, also how to invest in retirement to ensure that your investments are also growing. So I'll just want to highlight how you can easily build retirement savings you can build your income in retirement using retirement savings. And this one is especially geared towards the young people who probably are wondering, why should I join a pension scheme? If you join a pension scheme at 25 years, and probably your monthly contribution, either your own contribution or yours and employers, is that 3,500. And then we assume that your income will grow by 10% every year. Then that means your contributions will also grow by 10% every year. And then the return you get on those investments are 10% on average over the entire 35 years until age 60. And then you don't access your retirement benefits when you change jobs. You just leave them invested. You can actually easily build a fund of 20 million. Now, very few people retire with 20 million. But out of that 20 million, you'll have put in your own money less than 4 million shillings, about 3.79 million. But the bulk of the money, 80%, more than 16 million, will actually come from interest. Now, you realize that you're only saving a small proportion of your income, which does not stop you from doing all the other investments that you want to make. Therefore, I would encourage you to prioritize retirement planning, and especially through retirement benefit scheme. If your employer does not provide you with that, please start your own. And then if you have a fund of 20 million today in Kenya, you're 60 years, roughly you're going to get a gross income of about 200,000 per month. So going back to the budget we created, you realize that you'll be able to meet your living expenses. You'll actually even have surplus. You'll probably have much, much more than you need. Therefore, this is just an example of how you can build your other sources of income. So if your pension will give you 60,000, you have a rental property, you can invest in bonds. This figure here is for a bond of 5 million, and this can be accumulative bonds. You can buy one for 1 million or whatever amount. As you accumulate them, when you have an investment of 5 million, I've assumed that the bonds you're taking are long-term bonds, over 10 years, 20 years, because you also want that income to come in retirement. And I'm also assuming the current rates that are going on. The last few bonds have been sold, have fetched a return of above 12%. So I've used 12% and a tax rate of 10%. So you'll get this money, and if you layer your bonds, we call it layering bonds. So for example, if you buy a bond in December, you'll get the dividends in June and December. If you buy another one in January, you'll get your dividends in July and January. So you can keep buying bonds in such a manner where possible. It doesn't necessarily have to be such that you actually build a parallel source of income, and you'll be able to replace your salary. This is an investment strategy that most of us ignore. Yet as we start out in life, we expect our living expenses to actually increase, but we actually go and invest in areas that do not put money into our pocket, but actually remove money from our pocket. And that is one of the reasons why we struggle. So if you have a money market, one of the things we encourage you to maintain is an emergency fund. So if you maintain an emergency fund, this could be depending on your living expenses. As you approach retirement, I assumed I used the cost of about 70,000 shillings multiplied by 1 year or 2 years worth of living expenses. It's about 1.5. Basically, you estimate based on your living expenses, monthly living expenses, and then you keep a multiple of it. When you're in a good career, we encourage you 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses. And that money is available for emergencies, which could also include medical emergencies, and even as you transition into retirement. But that money, because it's earning an income, it could be earning you 8,500 shillings every month. That again boosts your income. You could have invested in shares and it's giving you some non-monthly income, whatever amount, depending on what you invested. You could be doing some business, you could be working, and then you could be having some maturities or sale of assets. So the most important thing, I'm trying to do is that you need to ensure that first you diversify your investments such that you'll be getting money from different sources. So that should something happen to one area, like now many people who have rental properties, especially in the middle class areas, many have struggled because they're not getting the rent, especially after COVID, and they've had to reduce the rent, and the occupancy is not necessarily 100%. So if that sector is being affected, what we realize is that the interest-bearing investments were not affected. They were doing well, the bonds, the money markets, and all that. So when you diversify, you ensure that you'll still be able to meet your need. So you can see what is guaranteed, what is regular, what is other incomes. The trick here is to ensure that you diversify your investments. And as you can see, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of money to actually have a good income in retirement. Most of us have pieces of land everywhere. If you aggregated the value of that land, it's probably a lot more than the value of investments that I have highlighted here, but it's probably not putting money in your pocket. So it's you either develop some of the pieces of land so that they give you rental income, or you sell some and keep some to sell later, so that you invest in other investments that improve your liquidity now and even into retirement. So all those things I have included, you can find them in details in this book, Retirement Planning, A Holistic Guide to a Satisfying Season. I launched it in May this year, and many people have given good reviews. It gives you the basics. Having worked in the retirement benefits industry for 17 years, I realized one of the things that we did then is that we used a lot of jargon, such that even if you go for meetings and explain to clients how pension works, next year they still ask you the same question. So I've tried to use simple English anyone can understand, and I've tried to illustrate, and most of the things I have discussed here, I've talked to them about them in details. You can get a hard copy, or you can even get a Kindle version. The book is also available at these bookstores. You can get it at Nuria Store, is on Moi Avenue. African Book Hub, they are on Thika Road, Dindigwa Mall. Fontana Bookshops, they're in Strathmore University. The main university, Kehpca Books, is an online store. You just go to kehpcabooks.com. Writers Guild is in Hazina Towers, ground floor. Rafu Book is an online store, and they do deliveries everywhere in town and out the outskirts and even out of town, including Kehpca Books and also Kusoma Lib. I also sell them directly. If you'd want to get a signed copy, you can buy directly from me, and you can arrange how you collect it from my offices. So I think I've talked a lot. I've given you a lot of information, and some of you might need help. For some, it might be easy to apply the knowledge, but for some, you might still feel like, okay, I get it, but I don't know how to exactly do what you have said. So that is what I do, and I do this with individuals and families, and even organizations engage me to prepare their staff as they transition into retirement. And I do this through a 6 weeks process. So it can either be financial planning or retirement planning. And this process, we start by first understanding your financial behavior. We get to know you, how has the environment where you've grown, how you are raised, and what you've experienced affected you. What is your risk tolerance, and what kind of investments would you be inclined to do? Then I help you to set and clarify and prioritize your goals, and that is where a majority of people need the help. There are many things you need to do, but you're not sure where to start. And then I help you to create and implement a retirement plan. to enable you achieve your dreams. So if you need help, please reach out. Tomorrow, I will be holding a free webinar, and I will be demonstrating how I develop or how I help clients to develop and implement a financial plan. So we'll be discussing why you need a financial plan, what needs to be in your financial plan, and how you can actually create one. I recognize that not everybody will come and use my services, but I would want to equip people with these skills and they can do them. So I invite you, you can actually go to that link and sign up. You can also go to our websites. I have two websites, Next Move Consulting. That's a company that trains and does the one-on-one coaching. You can send me a text message, you can drop me an email, you can visit our website and even sign up through there. And I also have another website called Retirement Solutions. This is an insurance agency that focuses purely on retirement planning benefits. So if you want to save for retirement through a retirement benefits plan, I can help you with that. If you're changing employers and you need to move your benefits, or if you're retiring and you need to convert your savings into an income, I normally do that. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I want to thank you very much for making time and being here, and I hope that you have learned something. Thank you. Back to you, David.
Wow, wow. If we were sitting in a, like a face-to-face kind of a class, there's a special appreciation we usually do. So let me reserve that for the time when COVID will not be here. But that was powerful. That was great. That was very insightful. A lot of knowledge shared, a lot of insight. Hashtag for me, annuity. I didn't know what that is. Now I do. And many other, I've taken notes, I've taken many pages, and I'm sure the audience from various places equally agree to what I'm saying. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing lots of knowledge. Very quickly, since I see time just flew, I don't know where it went. If you could just go through the questions, I will not read them, but I'm sure you can see them on your screen, isn't it? So if you could just kindly go through the question and answer, and if you're able to answer the questions there, that would be great. And the audience really from the chat acknowledge that it was very informative. I see people from India commending. That is very nice. So thanks. Rose, over to you. You're on mute, if you can unmute.
Okay, I've seen the questions. We have 8 questions. One of them is from an anonymous attendee. Kindly shed some light on taking loans to invest in money market to prepare for retirement. Is it a good or bad practice? I would say they are very, you need to be very careful when you use debt for investment, because one of the things you need to ensure is that the return you get from the investment must be higher than the cost of the loan. Now, majority of us tend to borrow from the SACCO, and majority of us pay 12% on SACCO. Money markets will normally give you a return of about 8 to 9%. That's what we've been enjoying this year. So if you moved money from SACCO to money market, you've just changed the investment, but you've actually lost in the sense that the cost of the loan is higher. So for loans, you have to look at the economic cost. We normally call it the economic cost because when you take a loan, the cost is not just the interest. You pay things like insurance. If you are taking from a bank, you pay processing fees. You need to look at all that and ensure that the return you get is higher. So I would encourage you to save and start small and build your savings. After all, you only need 500 shillings to start a money market. You can actually, when you're through with your loans, you can now divert the finances and now start investing. I hope that is done. Leonard Kiprono, can a provident fund saving an employer portion be paid wholesome or is there provision for a monthly payment? A provident fund enables you to access your savings at retirement as a lump sum. But you can also choose to access an income. So it gives you that leeway. You can access it as a lump sum, the entire amount of it, but you can also decide what amount you want to convert into an annuity or an income drawdown. So it is flexible. If you're in a pension scheme, the rules are fixed in the sense that you can only access a maximum of a third as a lump sum, and the balance has to be in an income, but Provident Fund gives you the flexibility. What is the difference between early retirement and early leaving of employment, especially for those at 50 years? The law recognizes age 50 as the early retirement age. So if you are leaving employment at age 50, if your employer consents to that, you can actually access your retirement benefits as retirement earnings, as opposed to withdrawal. When you access your benefits before you're age 50, or before you've been in a scheme for 15 years, you pay a lot of tax. It's like the government tries to recover the tax benefits you enjoyed. But after age 50, the tax brackets are very wide and you pay very minimal tax. We hear of people struggling in following up their pension, others to deathbed. What is usually the issue? I would want to say, especially for those in private sector, majority of retirement benefit schemes are operating very well now, and especially since RBA came into existence over 20 years ago, they've been able to streamline, and majority of people do not struggle accessing their benefits. But there were a few schemes that were already having financial issues, and probably they do not have the money to pay all the benefits, and sometimes they take long. But I would encourage people to make use of the RBA if you are coming from private sector. If you are coming from public sector, sometimes it is very important to just go to Bima House and talk to those people, because there are a lot of cartels that happen for people who are in TSC, people who are in government. There's some people who struggle to ensure that they are paid, but you need to follow up. Don't use third parties. Try to take yourself there. They will give you guidance on what you need to do. And normally for people in public sector, that process starts officially 18 months before your retirement. So some people just delay and they find themselves out of employment without an income. Benjamin, so would you recommend bonds or unit trust for building long-term portfolio? Unit trusts are normally for more or less for shorter term investments. When you're saving for longer term, bonds are some of the best investments that you can put your money in, because the longer the investment, the longer the term of an investment, usually the higher the returns. So for example, a 20-year bond will give you 12%, 13%. Money market will give you 12%, 8%, 9%. So you need both, because a money market will give you liquidity, but when you're saving for the future, you'll need things like bonds. So it's a combination of them, but unit trust will be for short-term or liquidity, and bonds will be for long-term investments. Which institutions, companies offer individual retirement policies with compound interest? Very, very many companies. For example, in the insurance industry, we have 22 companies. So any company, the majority of the life companies will have pension plans. If you just want me to mention names, I'll mention the big ones in pension, not the only ones. Sorry, Sue, please switch on my power. My laptop is shutting down. Allow me to switch on. Yeah, thank you. Is it charging? Yes, charging. Sorry about that. So the largest company would be probably be ICA, Jubilee, Britam, Kenindia, General Accidents, Liberty, UAP Old Mutual, Madison. All those companies will normally have individual retirement plans, but we also have others outside insurance companies. I would encourage you to go to the Retirement Benefits Authority website. So my laptop is acting up, and you'll be able to find the list of those companies. Then please beam the contacts again. Okay, I will do that in a very short while. The next one, the next question is, please send us the link to tomorrow's webinar. Yes, I will highlight that. Is SACCO saving a good investment? I would say it has its place, and it depends. It depends on your circumstances. I think majority of people enjoy saving in SACCOs because of the check-off facility, which makes it easier for them to save. It has its place in the plan, but I wouldn't say it's a good investment or it's a bad investment. For some people, it's not a good investment because it makes them go into debt, even unnecessarily. But for some people, they are able to use it well. Could you comment on legal matters, someone to take over my investment and looking after me? I believe here we are talking about old age, when probably you'll need to pass some of your wealth to someone else to take care of you. We encourage people to have wills, engage a lawyer, and express to them your interests. What would you want your resources to do? And especially for you in medical profession, you also know about what we call the living will. So you might not be dead, but you could be alive but incapacitated to give instructions on what should happen about your health care, or whether, I mean, they should stop the life support machine and those kind of things. The best thing would be to have a lawyer where you express your interest and then they're able to draft that in a will. How about a pure life insurance? Is it wise? Yes, it is very, very wise. Majority of people don't use it. Majority of people go to endowment policies, the education policies, the policies that have maturity. Yet a pure life insurance gives you protection. It is important that everyone who has dependents, spouse, children who depend on you, have a life insurance. Some people get that through the employer, the group life insurance, and the GPA. If you don't have, please take one. The cost is usually a tiny fraction of the life insurances that most people normally buy. Is NSSF reliable for retirement savings? Yes, NSSF, for those who have no other option of saving and they feel that they should go to NSSF, I always say it's better to save through NSSF than not to save. Yes, they run what you call a guaranteed fund, like insurance companies. You cannot lose your capital, and their rates differ from month to month, I mean, from year to year, just like with every other pension scheme. However, do they have among the best returns? Not necessarily, but what I would like to say is that over the years, I know they have diversified. They're using professional investors. They're using fund managers to actually invest most of their money. So I'm hoping that the returns will actually be higher. But there's a lot of information on how funds, the returns that funds give, so you can be able to compare, and NSSF also make that declaration on an annual basis. So I hope I've been able to answer those questions. I need to project my contacts. Just a minute. So for those who would like to join the webinar, that is the the link. If you can just, you'll be able to get it. It's just http://bit.ly/personal-financial-plan tomorrow at 6 p.m. And then my contacts, my cell phone number is 722-355-464. And you can reach me on rose.wakiria@nxconsult.co.ke, or you can reach me at rose.wakiria@retirementsolutions.co.ke.
Great. So as they copy, just wanted if you could comment before we close, something about the whole aspect around due diligence, especially if somebody is joining, certain companies. We remember the information that is around, especially concerning, should I mention, Cyton and all that. Then in the event somebody like invests through the more sure probably platforms in a government, and then what happens sometimes with political realignments and probably overthrowing of a government. Unfortunately, I hope we will not get there, but those things happen. What usually happens in those situations? Thank you.
Let's start first with private companies. It's very, very important that you be careful about where you invest your money. One of the things I like telling people is that the return you get on an investment is the price for the risk you take. So if you're taking a higher risk, you're likely to get a higher return. So don't be moved by just the returns that you get. It is very, very important that you do due diligence before you put your money somewhere. Now, you might not have that information, and that is why we have brokers. That's why we have financial planners like myself. I take time to analyze companies, and I decide which companies am I confident with. So if you are not sure, please seek the help of an intermediary or a financial planner. Then the other thing is that majority of the companies that are quoted in the stock exchange have to give certain disclosures. So if they change the management, you get to know because it's in the media. It is a requirement. That is one of the recommendations I normally make. It's just one of the things I use to gauge. So I like working with organizations that is easy to get information about them and what is going on within them. But if you can't, please engage a financial planner. Majority of brokers will not charge you to actually know, to actually decide on the company. But then you need to be very careful that you're not just going to that a tied agent. Some tied agent will be okay and they will be open about what they think about investments, but not everyone. But I would say you'd rather look for somebody who can guide you on that, and then you make the right decision. Now, when it comes to governments, most governments are very, very careful about their bonds because that is one of the main avenues through which they raise their capital. So even if there is an overthrow, a government is overthrown, the incoming government will actually need that source of income. So majority of them will tend to honor the bonds. They really protect that avenue because that is where they will get the money. So we have very few countries where the bond market has failed, very, very few. And in most cases, they really get a lot of help. We knew of Greece, which had been unable to pay certain bonds, but we know that the EU came alongside and other international financials and they helped. Of course, if there is a case of a total economic collapse, for example, like what happened in Zimbabwe, the inflation was so high that the money almost loses value. Of course, that is a risk, but what I keep saying is that it affects everything else because the value of Kenya shilling would, depending on, regardless of where it is, it would actually go down. So I had a webinar when the issues were happening in Afghanistan. So somebody was trying to justify that then the best investment is property. But properties also get destroyed. The people in Afghanistan had to leave their property. So you leave it. Today we are watching the volcanoes in Spain. Properties are being destroyed. So there is no investment does not carry a measure of risk. And so what we need to know, and especially for us as Christians, we know that yes, we make plans. God requires that we use the resources he has entrusted to us prudently, but we know that it is not these things that supply us our needs. It is God who will provide for us. So the fear of what could go wrong should not keep us from investing and making the most of what we have been given. We should not put our trust in those resources. Scripture says that they grow wings and fly away. So, but we need to just be prudent with what we have been given. So in case of total market collapse, I mean, the whole economy normally suffers. So the best thing is diversify your investments so that if one is suffering, probably one will be left intact.
Great. And so I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we can't continue, but we are very grateful. Thank you, Rose, for your time and for sharing a lot of knowledge. In case we have further questions or other areas of clarification, you could reach out through Kehpca or to her directly. I believe it has been a great evening. And so I want to hand over to the session to our Executive Director, Makiline, to close for us. Thank you everyone for your participation, and many thanks, Rose.
And thank you very much for having me.
Makiline, over to you.
Thank you so much, David, for a great moderation. And thank you so much, Rose, for making time to give such a great presentation. And nice meeting you online. I'm sure that after this session, many of us are going to side chat you and to look out for you, because you really opened our eyes, and retirement starts at any time. So some of us, it's even quite late to start. So thank you so much for such an eye opener. I'd also like to thank our partners, our friends, and our stakeholders who have joined from all over the world, from different time zones, and you have been very patient up to this moment. We thank you for the support. We thank you for taking time to join the webinar, and I'm sure and I hope that we've learned quite a lot, and we hope that we're going to use the lessons learned meaningfully. And as you know, palliative care is holistic. We not only look at the physical aspect, but we look at the psychosocial, we look at the physical, we look at the psychosocial, the spiritual, as well as the holistic aspect. So planning for retirement, as Rose said, it's a holistic thing. We look at, when you plan for retirement, look at all aspects. So as Kehpca, working in palliative care, we are glad to bring you such kind of series, which look at the holistic aspect of us as the partners, as much as we also work to ensure that people with palliative care needs are taken care of, their rights are upheld, and their voice is heard. So thank you so much, Rose, and thank you all the participants. Have a great evening, and see you in the next webinar.
Asante sana. Just as an announcement, we will have the next webinar in after 2 weeks, or else the second week from today. And we're also looking forward to the launch of the first Kenyan policy on palliative care, which falls on the 8th of October. So stay tuned. And all the best. God bless you. Good night and all the best to everyone. Bye-bye.